Hi, my name is Tara Kachaturoff, and I'm the host of Michigan Entrepreneur, where we feature businesses from startup to stellar. Today, we have as our special guest Nadia Arbach, a digital decluttering specialist. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Tara. It's so nice to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And thank you for coming on the program. This is such an important topic, and I can't wait to unpack it. But before we do, I'd love to talk to you a little bit about who you are, your background, and how you eventually got to this digital decluttering part of your career.
Okay, so I'm Nadia Arbach, and I run 4 different online businesses. The oldest of which I started in 2015, and it is called Clear the Decks. And in it, I am a professional declutterer and organizer. And I started this business going into people's houses, helping them declutter the things that they didn't need and that no longer served them. And I did that for a few years. And then eventually I moved my business online so that I could help more people around the world. And instead of going into people's houses now to help them declutter, I have courses and workbooks and digital products that will help them learn how to do it themselves so that they can do it at home themselves. And more recently, I transferred this skill into my business called nadiaarbach.com that serves multi-passionate entrepreneurs because we all have digital clutter as well. So I'm using those skills now to help business owners get rid of the clutter that they don't need so that they have everything they need and
And that's
nothing
how
that
we
they
met.
don't.
That's
Yes,
actually how we met. I met you
that is
through
how
an
we met.
entrepreneurial group, and you had this little mini course on digital decluttering, and I went through it and was like, "Oh my gosh, this is great!" You're just focusing on the digital part, and this is why I invited you on the program because everybody needs this. Everybody.
Fantastic. Yeah, every business owner, especially now because we're probably using more than one device at a time for our businesses as well. And the clutter can accumulate so fast because information goes so fast and we can download so many things every day. We can get so many emails every day. So it's really important to be able to pare it down so that we are only working with what is going to really serve us.
Now, when we talk about digital digital clutter, um, people think maybe it's not a problem because, oh, it just takes up bits and bytes. But why is it a problem?
It does take up bits and bytes. And, like the more you have, the more online space you are using. So, in terms of actual just space and data, you're using up something that you could be using for something better. But also, clutter takes up room in our minds. And it is just a low grade feeling of unease when we have things that we don't need and we know that we don't need them. And we are sort of preparing to get rid of them sometime in the future, someday. But it's always nagging in the back of our minds that we have that. And it's using up our mental space too. That space could be used much better for actually creating the digital products that we sell or furthering our online business in some way.
Absolutely. I know they've done studies about physical clutter and it causing anxiety, but I also get anxiety from my digital clutter. So I understand exactly what you're saying. So I want to ask about this distinction. When people think about decluttering, they also think about organizing. What's the difference between decluttering and organizing?
Yeah, that's a really great question because there is a very big difference between decluttering and organizing. So, decluttering is when you are assessing what you have and making sure that you are letting go of anything that's not serving you right now, that you have finished using, or that you know you're never going to use, so that you have just the things that you need. And organizing is making sure that you know where all of those things are, that you have sorted them in a way that is right for you to understand where everything is and how you're going to use it. So if you are organizing before you do any decluttering, it is in essence like buying a set of drawers to put stuff in before you know what stuff you want to put in there. So if you're making all sorts of nice folders on your desktop to store information in and digital files in, but you know that some of that is going to go there nicely filed in the folder that it belongs in, but that you will never use it, that is kind of the wrong order to do it in. So what I always say is decluttering has to come before organizing.
That's really well explained. Thank you. Because we all, I think when it comes to how much time we have in a day, sometimes we just in a flurry of like, okay, I'm just going to throw out a bunch of stuff. And other times we just want to make everything pretty looking. But
Yes.
really, we need to declutter first and then follow it up with organizing.
Yeah, and what I've noticed is that people love the idea of decluttering and they love the idea of organizing. But when it actually comes down to it, they actually really don't like decluttering as much as they like organizing. And that's why, for physical objects, there's all sorts of container stores everywhere
Right.
where you can like walk in and buy some beautiful, furniture or organizational tools. But, you if you're putting things in them that you're never going to use, then that storage device is not being used as it's intended to be. So it's always better to do the decluttering before the organizing.
All right. So now we're going to return a little bit in our conversation to some tips. So, what are a couple tips about helping us decide what to keep and what needs to go? Because we always have like, oh, that I might need it someday kind of thing, and I'm getting less of that as I get older because maybe someday may never come at this point. But what are some tips about how to decide what to keep? Because people just, as we'll talk about a little later, they just want to keep everything because like one day, the one day
Yes,
that never comes.
exactly. And I definitely will talk about that exact phrase. But the biggest tip that I have for decluttering is to figure out what your plan is for the next month to 3 months, what you actually want to achieve in your business. And if the things that you are looking at, that you are deciding about whether to declutter or not, are not going to help you do those exact things and accomplish those exact goals in your business plan, then they are not necessary for you at this time. If they're necessary for you in the future, well, I have a way of figuring that out and what to do about that. But if you don't need them right now, you can let go of them because you will always be able to get something like that or something better or something that somebody has made that's more current when you actually need it.
And 3 months actually seems like a long time, but you know, um, it is a long time in the digital world that we both work in.
Yes, for
You know
sure.
what's really important in what you said is tying it to what we want to be accomplishing in our business. I've never heard anybody say that. It's completely brilliant, brilliant
Well, yeah,
because
because if you have a whole bunch of stuff and it will help you accomplish various different goals that you would love to achieve, but those goals are not in your plan for the next 3 months, that's how you can sort out which things you really, really need and which ones you really don't.
yeah, I think that's just not something I've heard anybody say when it comes to this kind of thing, is about tying it to that bigger goal. I mean, that is so important
Mm,
because everybody has a lot of these ideas and shiny objects and I'm going to do this one day ideas, but it's not about that. It's almost making you do the commit. You got to commit to your big goal before you know where to go next,
yeah.
basically.
Exactly. And for the multi-passionate business owners that I serve, they have so many ideas. Like I wake up with, 42 ideas in the middle of the night most of the time. And I have to write them down, but not all of them are going to come to fruition. And certainly not all of them all at the same time right now. So we have to know how to prioritize which activities we want to pursue right now. And you have to have a way of prioritizing them mostly based on what can I reasonably accomplish and what is going to be the thing that is the most profitable for my business right now, and what I can actually achieve with the skills that I have. So those great ideas may come to fruition one day, but we need to focus on the ones that we actually can do right now.
Well said. Well said. I know we were talking a little bit before about, mindset, and I've heard you mention, of course, in even the materials that I've read from your great course, is about decluttering is a mindset game. What do you mean by that? And let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because well, everything in business is a mindset game anyway. But decluttering is a mindset game because your mind is the best and biggest tool that you will ever use for decluttering. And it is all about what attitude you take towards it. And I always encourage my clients to take a really positive attitude towards it, a kind of like forgiveness attitude as well, because we often berate ourselves when we see the clutter. We think, how could I have let that accumulate? How could I let it build up like that? I'm so disorganized. I'm not very good at this. All kinds of negative comments towards yourself. And I think we also have a tendency to do that for any bad habit that we might have. But the thing is that's important is first to realize that like habits don't happen in one day, and they don't take only one day to change either. So it is a gradual process. It is not something like the clutter didn't all come in at once and is not all going to go away at once. So you have to be forgiving of yourself. You have to know that it's going to take some time and that it's going to be worth the effort. My positive thinking kind of attitude has 4 steps. The first one is to just notice the behaviors and the habits that are leading to clutter. And we are going to talk about those habits because I have a trademarked framework for that. But you have to notice the behaviors when they're happening.
Mhm.
As soon as you notice the behaviors, the second step is to congratulate yourself for noticing the behaviors because most people won't even notice. So if you are on the lookout for habits and behaviors that lead to clutter and you actually notice, pat yourself on the back because it's it's something that people don't articulate to themselves a lot. And then the third thing to do is to be kind to yourself like you would be to a friend and be gentle on yourself. Treat yourself the way that you would treat somebody else. Don't berate yourself. Say, okay, great, you noticed. Now let's do something about it. And then the fourth thing is to practice reducing the frequency or the intensity of that behavior that is causing the clutter.
Yeah, I love that four-step framework that you have for looking at the mindset because awareness is and noticing is the problem half solved because until you can
Absolutely.
notice that you have the problem, that's
Yeah.
why coaching is so important because somebody
Hmm.
else can see that you got maybe the problem with the decluttering situation going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Noticing, congratulating yourself for noticing, being kind to yourself, which we all need to do. We all need to extend grace to ourselves as we do
Yeah.
to others, and reducing the frequency and intensity of it. And we backstep, right? I mean, we go
Yeah.
backwards if we sit up.
Certainly we do.
Sometimes we
Yeah.
go forward. I mean, you know,
It's incremental steps. Like I said, all the clutter is not going to go all away all at the same time. Your behaviors are not going to change overnight. And so, every little step counts towards moving in the right direction.
right. As long as we're on the northbound train, um, you know, that way
Yeah,
works. Moving
that's
forward
right.
in some way. All right. So what right now I'd like to turn the conversation and we're going to talk a little bit about um, your trademarked 7 clutter triggers decluttering framework. And we're going to kind of unpack this into each of the 7 triggers and we'll kind of move through this at a swift pace. But
Yeah.
what drew you to creating this framework? Was there any particular event that caused you to pull this all together, or was it just from years of working with people and seeing this as a process or framework to help them out? How did this come about?
It was not all at once. It is from the years of going into people's houses and just listening to the vocabulary that they were using when they were describing the item or items that they were talking about that they could not let go of. And from the words that they were saying, I understood what the internal struggle was about why they couldn't let it go or why it came into the house in the first place. And after having done that, I noticed a pattern of particular words and phrases that people would use. And it came down to 7 different habits or behaviors that either led to clutter coming into their home or led them to not be able to let clutter go out of their home again. So I worked on it and articulated it. So I came up with a name for each habit. And that became the framework that I look at. And so if somebody is discussing their clutter with me, I can almost immediately understand what the behaviors are that are leading to that clutter being there.
All right. Okay. So we're going to talk about these kind of quickly, but we'll discuss each one like really kind of fast. But we'll start with the first one. This is clutter trigger number one: over accumulating. Tell me what that means. And this is in
Yes,
the digital realm,
overaccumulating.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I at first I called it overbuying or and that is because it's things in the home. But when it comes to digital things, and by the way, this framework works equally well for digital clutter and for clutter in your home. So if you're not a business owner, then you can use it too. If you are a business owner, you can use it for all your digital clutter. Overaccumulating is just bringing in onto your digital devices more information and documents than you could reasonably use in the time that you have. And a lot of times, especially in the circles that I'm in, there are bundles and summits and giveaways where people, can download courses or templates or other really useful things for free for a limited time. And so, you grab as many as you can. And that's how people get a lot of digital clutter. And in another way, you can get it via having too many emails coming into your inbox or signing up to too many mailing lists. But that's all digital clutter that's coming in at a faster rate than what you can use it.
All right. Super. Okay. Clutter trigger number two: scarcity thinking. What's that all about?
Yes, scarcity thinking. We're back to that phrase, it'll come in handy one day, or it might come in handy one day. And another one, which is its counterpart, I spent good money on it, so I
There you
don't
go.
want to let it go. So
Right.
this is more, is not about bringing things in, it's about being able to let things go. And this one, I mean, it could be that it's ingrained since a really long time ago because some people you learned in their childhood that things were scarce and they heard these phrases from their family members and they then began thinking that way as well. Now, scarcity thinking really, like if you were in a true um, time of lack, then things are scarce for you. But most of the time, they're not. And you can get another one if you need one at some point. Some people don't like spending money and then letting go of a thing that they've spent money on. But then the solution is make your decisions much more carefully about what you're spending money on right now. And is it going to help your business right now? But mainly, it's about being able to let things go because you feel like you're never going to be able to get them back again.
And if there's anything we know that that isn't true, we live in such a world of abundance, and you will find it, and you'll probably find it for free somewhere.
You probably will,
You
and
know
the
what I mean?
rate
If you
that
look hard
digital
enough.
products get made,
Right.
there's always gonna be something new available.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on to trigger number three: sentimentality and nostalgia. What's that about?
Yes, that's right. That's one that hits right in the heart. And in the physical world, it would be something that somebody left you that maybe is no longer with you, and you feel like keeping it because it reminds you of them. Now, in the digital world for business, the counterpart is um, a product
Buying a
that.
course from somebody you really like or your best friend, and it's
Yes,
like, I just
absolutely.
wanna tell
Buying
you
a
that. I
course
really don't.
from your best friend to support them
Right.
and because you love them, right? And then realizing actually this is not going to help me with my business right now, but feeling like putting it in the digital trash is like trashing them. So you're equating a thing with the person.
Right.
And you feel bad about letting it go. And what we need to remember in that situation is that things are not people.
Right.
and they never will be people. If you didn't have that course, you would still be friends with that person, and you wouldn't lose all of your memories of them, would you?
Right.
So you can. And I have gotten rid of courses that were from my mentors, who I absolutely love, but that course was not serving me, or I had finished with it and I didn't need it anymore. And they would want you to move forward in your business too, especially if they're your mentor or your friend.
Absolutely. And especially if you're their friend, because you would understand the most that, hey, they're doing decluttering and you would
Hmm.
totally want them to do that. Right.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
This one kind of is closely tied to the nostalgia, is like sense of duty. I mean, this is also kind of closely tied. Can you speak about sense of duty and how that relates to digital decluttering?
Yeah, sense of duty is the one where you are guilt tripping yourself into doing or keeping things that you really don't like or need anymore. So, for example, going to group meetings for like a group that you're in, like a group coaching program, or just keeping items that you have started and you feel like you should finish because you started them. If you started creating a digital product yourself for sale. But in we've all started projects and not finished them for some reason. And some of those reasons are because we found other things that would actually move our business faster and further. And we always intend to come back and finish the ones that we've started, but sometimes we just need to axe them. They have to go because we have other more productive things to do with our time. But when we guilt trip ourselves with our sense of duty to finish what we started, that's not actually a great use of our time.
And there's no entity out there that's looking over us to make sure we complete projects. That is like doing a parental kind of thing on yourself. You
Yes,
need to punish yourself
exactly.
and act like a parent to yourself.
Yeah. It's I
Systematic.
call it the school marm, actually, like, "You better finish your work," or "You better clean your plates," or all of those
Right.
things, where we're being made to feel guilty, and then we do it ourselves because 'cause we've internalized that.
Yeah, exactly. All right. That sense of duty. How about sense of identity? Identifying with
Oh,
your clutter. Yikes.
This one is a really good one because, especially for new business owners, right? We are looking at the business world. We're taking a look at all the websites and all of the products that are available. And we think, wow, this person really did a great job doing that. I love their website. I want one like that too. And really, it doesn't suit us or what we're trying to do for our audience. But we loved it so much when they did it that we tried to take that and we try to use it ourselves, and it just doesn't work. And that creates clutter in the form of, a website that you have to like then redo, or a logo that, you didn't actually use because you realized that it was not quite right, or products that you tried to make that were like somebody else's, but that didn't actually give your message to your audience, which is what they need. So it's more like putting on a mask or pretending to be somebody else or mimicking somebody even without realizing it, and then understanding that actually that didn't work. But we want to keep those things anyway because we liked them so much. So that's a really hard one
Yeah.
to deal with.
And bottom line, boys and girls, you got to be who you are, and
You got to be yourself.
nobody else. We're all unique, and we can
Yeah.
never be what somebody else is, and nobody wants that,
Yeah.
right? They want
No, it's not serving
you.
your audience at all.
No, not at all. All right, sense of identity. That's
Mm.
great. How about disorganized thinking? That kind of
Ah.
goes along with clutter and stuff everywhere. What does disorganized thinking mean?
Yeah, this is the one that everybody thinks about when they think, oh, I should declutter. Because really, what they mean is like, I have things that are disorganized and I want to put them into folders. But disorganized thinking goes a little bit deeper than that, is more about, you haven't come up with a system that is going to serve you. So you might not be able to find a document that you have, or a course that you signed up for, because you don't know where you put that information. So you re-download it, or you re-sign up for it, and then you have two copies and you don't know where either of them is, maybe. So then you again, download it again. So you have multiple copies or multiple sign-ins to various um, products, and it just keeps on adding up. And so that's one format of disorganized thinking. And another one is like not being able to find documents that you yourself created because you
Right.
didn't have a naming convention for them or a folder that was named correctly for you to put them in. So that's what people think of, like when they think, I need to organize my business. Yes, absolutely. The disorganized thinking leads to clutter because it leads to multiple things when you don't need those multiples.
All right. And then real quick, overwhelm, what does that mean in the world? We kind of all know what that means, but what does it mean in your world?
Yeah, it means you've accumulated the information and the tools that you need for the many, many great ideas that you have, but you've neglected to think about, I only have a certain amount of time. So you've built up all of the materials, and then you might even get to a state where you are so overwhelmed and you don't know which route to take because you haven't planned it out, that you can't even do anything. You feel sort of almost like you're at a standstill, instead of being able to make a decision because there's too much that is calling to you and you haven't prioritized it.
All right. And thank you for sharing all of those. Those are 7 clutter triggers, and it's part of your 7 clutter triggers framework. So excellent. Thanks for going over those. I know we're kind of getting near wrap up time. I want to see if we can shoehorn in one more question. What
Sure.
is a top tool that you would suggest if you could just pick one top tool to help clients declutter real quick?
Do you know what? I would not suggest a tool. The tool is in here, it's your brain, and it is your mindset. So, being ready to declutter and being willing to let go of whatever the things are you don't need is a much, much better tool than any kind of organizational tool that I could name for you. And there are plenty out there, and they're all good. And good old pen and paper is also good for organizing if that's what you like. But the real tool is your mindset.
All right. And I totally agree. It all starts in the mind, right? And from the mind, everything comes.
Yes.
So my final question for you is, you work with a lot of entrepreneurs. You're a multi-passionate entrepreneur yourself. What's your advice to entrepreneurs when it comes to digital decluttering? If you could put that in a nutshell, what would you say?
Okay. So my advice is don't be afraid to declutter more than you think you need to declutter because, as I mentioned before, the digital world is producing new stuff every day. It's producing more courses, more products, more templates, more freebies, more everything. And so, if you declutter it and you realize, oh, I actually needed that one thing, then you can get another one very easily. And 95% of the time, you will never need that thing again. So most of the time you will have decluttered it and it will never make a difference to you again. So, but if you do need it, know that it's there and trust that you will be able to get something exactly the same, similar, or even better.
Excellent. I want to thank you so much, Nadia, for being a guest on today's program and teaching us all about a lot of the details and the triggers around digital decluttering. So, thank you so much for being a guest. And maybe we'll have you on again in the future to talk about another aspect of decluttering because it's such an important part of our lives now. We have to do it, it's a must.
Yes, thank you so much, Tara, for having me on this show. I have really enjoyed talking to you, and I would love to talk to you again about it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. If you'd like more information about our program, please visit us at www.michiganentrepreneurtv.com. Please join me again in the future when I interview another enterprising entrepreneur. Until then, wishing you the best of business.